I find that more value. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
So I'm Sean, as my beautiful dragonfly ID card that Sarah made shows. Sean Kennedy. It says Real NY CBD. That's a business, a brand that I represent with my cousin here. We're based in Amherst, New York. It's a line of full spectrum CBD products, ingestibles and topicals. Spoke Farms grows the hemp CBD that we use right over on Tonawanda Creek Road. We have it processed in Tonawanda with a licensed processor, and then our office is in Snyder on Kensington Avenue. So we're very locally based therapeutic cannabis company, I'll call it. Put it that way, right? I'm careful with the word medicinal because I'm not a doctor, but there is basically two general camps, if you will, for cannabis. There's your medical, that's more traditional in the sense that since the 90s California opened up, they were the first state to offer any kind of medical cannabis to people on a very restricted basis comparatively to now. And then you have your more recent, although if you go legacy, which was AKA, used to be known as black market, that goes way, way back. They call it legacy now, but so that's sort of a third pillar, if you will, but adult use dispensaries have opened in New York in the last 3 to 4 years now, okay? Anybody here been to one of those dispensaries? Did you have a positive experience? Did you leave with a product you felt good about? Did you leave educated? Did you leave with questions?
Yes, very surprised how expensive.
Okay,
But
prices.
not as expensive as medical, because I've had that before as well.
Okay, yep.
But I was surprised how expensive.
Okay, so that's one of the things we're looking at too. Like none of this is covered by insurances, not even to my knowledge, FSA, HSA type spends for people that get those nice benefits at your job. Hopefully that's going to change with the rescheduling of cannabis. You may have heard President Trump sign an executive order. Doesn't mean it's going right to 3, but he started the process to move it from Schedule 1, which has been an absurd designation since Richard Nixon created the Controlled Substances Act and threw cannabis in there with some really dangerous things like fentanyl, heroin, and so forth. So Schedule 1 meaning it has 0 medicinal value, which we know now, even with the relative lack of research. When I say we know, and some of you in this room may already know if you're currently using any type of cannabis products for therapeutic benefits, like myself, we're really moving the needle from this historic propaganda campaign that marginalized and criminalized this plant, which is remarkably therapeutic. I can touch on that a little bit too, why, and you may have heard of it. So a lot of legalities are wrapped up in this thing. There's a lot of limitations, but moving it from 1 to 3, from no medicinal value to let's see if it has medicinal value. In other words, it's a confession that yes, this plant is helpful to people, so let's get it rescheduled. That, and I am very connected to people inside of the cannabis community, if you will, everything from here to a guy in California that started a hemp company in the 90s, so he's really passionate about this. So I stay on the pulse of, as best I can, of what's going on with hemp, adult use, legacy, those terms that are thrown around, but it's evolving. The situation is evolving rapidly now. And it's an exciting time from the standpoint of getting this plant legitimized so that more people can get access to it. But we need advocacy. There's people going to Washington, D.C. next week there's been a ban was placed on hemp CBD products, any products with THC basically, which is everything on the market, even ours has some THC in it. Would rewrite the language and make our current product and many other reputable brands illegal. So that was a big step back. That happened at the end of November. That was sponsored by our buddy Mitch McConnell. Obviously some lobbying groups, whether it's pharmaceutical, alcohol industry, tobacco, there's a bunch that don't really want to see cannabis succeed because it starts to replace them or seriously cut into their market share. right? My father used alcohol for pain relief, basically. If I could have turned him on to cannabis, he may still be alive. I don't know. I don't torture myself with that, but I tried to. Wasn't open-minded to it. Vodka's what he knew to help, right? And in cigars, and it really contributed to his demise and his dementia. And so, for that reason, family members, myself included, it's become a real passion of mine to advocate for it. And we need education, whether people are going in to talk to one of these bud tenders at the dispensaries. I've been into a few over the last couple of years. Some are very knowledgeable. Some are just like, dude, I look the part, they hired me, I'm just here to sell weed. So run the gamut, right? And that's gonna work for some people, because they're just gonna come in and be like, you got Jack Frost, or I don't even know, I lose track of all the names. You got, you know, Frosty this, Diesel that. Like, let's talk, how much THC, right? And then that dude can shine in that moment. But somebody might walk in, I think this was your experience, Vera, with, you know, looking for education to help them with their health and therapeutic use. Now I say, well, why don't you just go to your doctor, get the medical card, go through the medical system. You can do that. My mom's done it. But quite honestly, that's toot my own horn, but I've gone with her to Vera Life Medical Dispensary. I believe it's still the only one that's remaining in the area in Western, or at least in Erie County, medical dispensary. And I knew, and I told her, Mom, this is what they're gonna, almost word for word. And she was like, wow, you really know this, when they were recommending stuff to her. I said, this is probably what they're gonna steer you to, and sure enough. And so it was nice. I was able to advocate for her, and they did a good job. They were definitely more educated than what I've seen walking into some of the adult use dispensaries, right?
They're so good. I found them.
They're great. They're great. They have a
very knowledgeable.
great model. I applied to work there. I loved it. I was
Yeah,
like, I
they
could
were
see myself doing this, you know.
Where was that?
They're in it's on your way to like Niagara Falls.
It's on.
It's a drive.
Yeah, it's North French Road.
Yeah.
What was it
So
called?
all the way at the edge of North Amherst, almost into Niagara County. Vera Life. Vera Life is the
I guess
name
I
of
won't
it,
forget.
right? Kind of powerful, right? So that may be a route for you to go. Now, to go in there and purchase, you need a medical card. You need to have seen a doctor who's able to sign off on one of these cards. Last I heard it was $100, I think, a year. I think you have to renew it, I'm not sure.
Yes, you do. I used to have mine,
Yep.
but once they legalized it in New York, I was like, I'm not paying. It used to be $150.
And you, now when you say that, what's your name?
Jessica.
Jessica? So when you say that, oh, I didn't need it anymore, you were empowered enough with knowledge, knowing yourself, your body, enough about cannabis, where you said, okay, I'll just go to any
Res.
other place,
The
or the
res.
res, and that's, some people are a little leery of the res, you know, I love my Indian friends.
It depends on where you
But
go.
depends on, it always
just
depends on where you go, right? A friend of mine has her little shop on Canarogus Res. She's renting from a native out there, and she really talks about, you know, she's really knowledgeable in this area too. And she talks about that, how important it is to know who's growing it, how it's processed, right? These are important factors as well. You know, like, for the most part, we're not getting anything from China. Not to knock China, but that's where you can maybe get into some of the more dicey products that might have toxins in them, metals, just, you know, who knows where it was grown. Was it grown on an old industrial site? One of the things, one second, Jessica, one of the things about cannabis, one of the amazing things about it is it pulls toxicity from the soil, it cleans the soil. That's wonderful, but you wouldn't want to consume that plant.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the one for consumption, that's the one to help the earth, right? And that's typically your sativa hemp varieties that grow 12, 15 feet tall. It's not about the flower, it's really not about any purpose of the plant. You maybe could use the fiber and I think they call it the herd if you were to do something with the fiber of the plant, but you wouldn't want to put it into your body, right? But depending on what kind of site you're cleaning, you might not even want to do that. They might have to landfill it. But at least now it's out of the soil, right? So it's a remarkable plant. I think it does that in our bodies too. Research is still a ways away, but what I'm saying is that it's not just, oh, this is so much better than Advil, it's better for my liver, I'll just take CBD. There's more health benefits than pain relief, right? But most of us are looking for some kind of pain relief, right? Some kind of help me out, sleep. I got these symptoms, the doctors are only so helpful. Maybe I'm a little bit distrustful of what the medical system's steering me toward, and so what are my options, right? And that's where you want to get educated, do some research, do some homework, come to talks like this. I don't know it all, but I've been working with this plant since I started smoking it and growing it in college 30 plus years ago. That's where my journey started with it. I was very just say no. Nancy Reagan had me hooked in the 80s. I was like, I will never do drugs. And my cousin kept wearing on me, and I finally said, what the heck, and I did a bong hit, and I was like, this stuff's good. And I was like 18 or 19 at the time, and I was like, I had just discovered alcohol. This stuff's good. I like how I feel. Except the next day I feel like crap.
Yeah.
One of the early things I noticed was I didn't wake up regretting it if I smoked a lot of weed the night before. If I drank with it, still. So I was like, this could replace that, right? And so that was just an interesting switch for me, right? That I was able to overcome my bias to the plant, right? So that was a recreational, social, in my cousin's friend bedroom, his big bong he called Stairway to Heaven. We got super high, played Zeppelin and had a good afternoon, right? There's medicinal value to that, to just getting high in the sense of feeling, let's put it this way, better than low, right? Being in social situations, right? Especially going through COVID, we all dealt with some aspect of being isolated. And so coming back to our families and friends and going, wow, I miss this. It's medicinal for us to be around one another, right? Ideally, people, birds of a feather, we can talk and agree on most things, but nowadays you never know. But that social component of life is really important too. I can't emphasize that enough. And so that's a big part of alcohol culture too, is it's very social, right? Now we're starting to see that with cannabis. There's a real social element to consuming the plant. And whether it's just people that like to garden, like me, I love growing plants. I've studied plants in college. And like I said, I learned how to grow it in my closet. And back then I had to be super, super careful and quiet. And it was just a small little crop. And I was able to sell a little bit to help pay my rent and smoke my own really good high quality Skunk Northern Lights. And it was a good gig, right? But I was always nervous. Like, are they gonna find out? Are the cops coming for me? And it's so ridiculous to think that you're growing a plant in your closet and you could go to prison, and people have, right? Some of those people now are licensed dispensary owners. So they've kind of come the full from illegal, marginalized to legacy to licensed, right? It's been like quite a journey, right? And so I love that, to see that for people that were incarcerated and now are able to work with this plant, that's all they wanted to do legally. And now there's still stigma. Some people might be like, dude, you should still be in jail, or who knows, right? But they probably don't run with those people anyway, so go ahead, have your opinions. But I think what a great story when someone says, hey, I went through the justice system with this part of my journey, non-violent offense, right? Because obviously you can get into, even with cannabis in large enough quantities and money, guns and gangs could be involved, but that's a whole other world, right? Typically it was people like me just growing a little bit of weed for themselves and their friends. Why should that land you in jail? It's absurd, right? So we've come a long way in 30, just in my lifetime, right? But cannabis was prohibited almost 100 years ago. They did it through a financial method first, through a taxation act, to make it essentially unaffordable. Sound familiar? And the doctors that were there was a time where cannabis oil was regularly recommended by doctors in the 1800s. Oftentimes it was more palliative. It wasn't necessarily take this, it'll cure you or help you with your cancer, whatever it might be. Nonetheless, it was effective and it was helping people suffer less. And I think most of us would agree, if there's something out there that's going to help reduce suffering in the world, I'm listening, right? And so certainly cannabis brings that. There's a lot to it. I don't like getting into it, but you had your reefer madness, you had your propaganda campaign. Nixon made it a Schedule I drug in 1971, right? Just doing a quick timeline of how this all unraveled. Meanwhile, in the 60s, the Flower Power Gang, and it was preceded by the black jazz musicians. There was a racist component to this too. Even calling it marijuana, I don't use that term. that it's a racial slur. It was targeted towards Mexicans who were going to come over the border, stoned out of their mind, and pillage America. Now they say that about the Muslims, but I won't go too far with that. But so marijuana, right? It's a term that I don't use. I use the scientific term cannabis when I refer to it. I might say CBD. That's just one component of the plant. Cannabidiol, it's remarkable. THC is the other really familiar one, but these are just two of over 100, and really several hundred. They're still discovering compounds in the plant, whether it's cannabinoids or these other wonderful things called terpenes. Anybody know what a terpene is? Terpenoid? Yes, I see some yeses, cool. So Vera, you don't know. So I like to use this example, a mango. When I say mango, can you get have you ever had a mango? Can you get kind of the scent of it or even the flavor? So in mango is a terpene called myrcene, myrcene. Wonderful natural muscle relaxer. Some cannabis varieties will produce myrcene. How cool is that? This plant can grow that, produce this thing. It's not even closely related to mango. Mango's in the same family as poison ivy. People don't know that. Some people that eat it will get a little bit of like red on their lips. That's why, because there's a little bit of that oil in poison ivy. Now I'm very sensitive to poison ivy. Mango never bothers me. I love it. So that was one of the things I learned early on when I was running into some stuff about 10 years ago. Was mango plus cannabis equaled plant relief. And it was really helping me with muscle and nerve issues. So yeah, just fascinating. These terpenes are in most plants. Beta-caryophyllene is in hops. Hops is a cousin to cannabis. It's really the only plant that's closely related to cannabis, like closely, like they're cousins, they call it. They're in the same family, I believe it is, different genus. Another wonderful terpene that has these properties that they're discovering. Now, you can just get into isolating, like, let me just take myrcene, that's all they need, I don't need the rest of the plant. Well, there's something called the entourage effect. And that's the synergistic, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, way that the plant works in the body. And an analogy I like to use for that is you could take ascorbic acid in a pill or a capsule, or you could eat a grapefruit. There's a difference. And the vitamin C in the grapefruit's working with other compounds that ascorbic acid doesn't have. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So I think it's like, I come up with some good analogies, try to help people understand. Like, cannabis is a supplement. That's how I look at it. Anybody here take supplements? I take magnesium. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a time when I took so many I lost track, you know. Supplement things that we get. Why would we supplement? What are we trying to do?
Improve our health.
But why is it an issue?
Yeah.
Deficiency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
Deficiency. We're trying to correct and address a deficiency or a dysregulation in one of many of our systems: nervous system, cardiovascular, endocrine, musculoskeletal, right? Metabolic. We got all these systems, right? We also have something called the endocannabinoid system. Who's heard of that? So at least did they tell you about it?
I read about it this morning.
You read about it this morning, so there you go. So here we have this, and here's how if you look at like our bodies and think, okay, my metabolic system, okay, it starts with my mouth and it ends at the other end, and there's a stomach and a pancreas and liver and all these, right, tests. Okay, nervous system, nerves are everywhere, right? Cardiovascular, here's my heart, veins, they're running through my whole body, right? You can kind of like get a physical conception of the hardware of the system, if you will. Different glands secreting different hormones, right? The endocannabinoid system is very dynamic. It's not fixed. What I'm saying is that there's receptor sites throughout the body. They're not fixed. And here's what I think really powerful that I've learned about this is when we run into illness, injury, and/or infection, or chronic stress. Anybody know about that? And some of it is just like, it's the word thrown around, stress. You know, a lot of it's suppressed emotions in our body that restrict those systems from working well. What the master in ourself is going to do through this endocannabinoid system, I think of it as the software, is going to create more receptor sites where it's needed. So you've got diverticulitis. There's going to be a lot of receptor sites there. Does it mean there's compounds available to go bind with those receptor sites? Probably not, because we're deficient and we're dysregulated, okay? Now we supplement with a plant. Now if it was as simple as just take this one product, we'd all be on it. But there's so many products. There's full spectrum CBD, there's your high THC stuff, there's stuff in between, there's different chemo bars, there's different terpene profiles that might be useful for you, right? So it's a bit of a moving target. Excuse me, what I like about full spectrum CBD is it's somewhat of a catch-all. If nothing else, take a good quality full spectrum CBD product. If nothing else. And in your journey, when you find a product that's working with you for you, stay with it as long as you can. They might pull it from the market. Sometimes brands come and go, it happens, and you have to find a new one. But if you find something that's working for you, don't quit it. You may take less if things are improving. That's great. That'll help with the wallet because it can get expensive to get into therapeutic cannabis products. More expensive, I think, than adult use, to be honest. Some of these products are fairly pricey, but they're if you find the right one, it's worth it.
So how do you
Right.
how do you know? Because I feel like there's a lot of products. How do you know if you're getting a good one, or what are some anecdotes to pick something that's
Yeah,
high
great.
quality?
No, it's a great question. Number one is you can't get a certified, I shouldn't say that, they're out there. You can't get, what I was going with it was organic, USDA organic certification on the cannabis plant, again, because of that federal classification. So that may change too with the 1 to the 3, we'll see. So you can get other organic added to it. But the main thing is, so suppose we're not, the farmers are not USDA organic, but they use 0 chemicals in growing it. They do no pesticides. They have beautiful yellow sand, they call it. It's Lake Erie bottom, like when Lake Erie used to be up into Amherst thousands of years ago and left a lot of really great deposits and sediment. So they grow on some really amazing, it's really neat stuff. It's like literally like growing in sand. I go and see their crop, like the soil scientist in me geeks out on that. So number one is, can I trust that this plant's being grown in a good, clean manner? Because the last thing you want to do is take something that sure might take the edge off of some symptoms or help you complementary therapy with some other diagnosis that you have, and then add toxins to your system in the process, and therefore increasing stress levels, right? Like stress is like psychological, environmental, and physical, right? We can hurt ourselves when we fall. We go through something in life, job loss of a loved one, these kind of things we've all been through, and I'm sure in here, that's a tremendous psychological stress, right? And chemical environmental stress, what we're eating, what we're breathing, what we're drinking, what we're exposed to every day. And that includes like frequency signals and EMF and all that stuff we can't even see. A lot of it we can't see, we just breathe it in, right? Or just, it's in the water, right? But back to your question. So number one, really make sure you vet out, and third-party labs are required and so forth, but that's typically just for cannabinoid content. It's not always for molds and metals and so forth. But again, if you know how something is produced, you can kind of take that off the table and not have to worry about it, right? From there, it's a bit of trial and error. Talk to somebody that's had some experience. Talk to somebody like you. So what was your name?
Amy.
Amy, so what brought you here today?
I don't know, I was just interested in this.
Okay, so you're not dealing with any health stuff, you're not taking any cannabis products? No, okay. All right, so you're just curious
Yeah,
and want to be ready in case you need it?
I do.
That's smart, really smart. I think everyone, regardless of this is my opinion, of your health, psychological and or physical, would benefit, I'll put it that way, I don't like the word should, would benefit from taking some sort of, again, probably a full spectrum CBD type supplement. Because one of the beautiful things that it does for us is it lowers inflammation in the body. If you have a health issue, you have an inflammation issue. Doesn't matter where it is, whether it's a tumor, whether it's more systemic, whatever it might be. If you have pain, That's inflammation. So we want to keep that in check throughout our life, right? Regardless of as we get older and it's like, God, that never used to hurt. And that was never a thing. Or I recovered from illness so much quicker when I was 20 years younger, or whatever, right? Preventive. So in your case, kind of heading it off. And you could take very moderate, modest doses because you're not trying to correct something. If you're trying to correct or really get some symptoms in check, that's where typically you're into higher doses, right? Like anything else, you have more deficiency, right? Your endocannabinoid system, if you're not dealing with any real persistent health issues, is working pretty good, right? Not optimally, because none of ours are. Because we're all immersed in this stress container of living in this world. But well enough where you're blessed, you know. Our health is just like priceless. I really come to learn. I took it for granted for 40 plus years. And when I ran into persistent chronic pain symptoms and other scary things, you know, everything from what seemed like almost seizures or whatever, but I went through a really hard time with psychological stress. I lost my nephew who died at a family party. It was incredibly tragic and incredibly difficult to process. It took a couple of years. I'm in a good place about it now, but seeing other family members suffer for it, my sister and brother-in-law, their baby that they adopted from an orphanage in Bogota, Colombia, devastating, right? Then my girlfriend left a few months after that with her 2 children that I loved. So I lost 3 more people. A couple months after that, my dad had a stroke, never walked again. It was in a 6-month period. That was a lot. The one was enough. The one would have been enough, right? But I got hit with 3. And I just started, I couldn't sleep. I was getting really paranoid. It brought up some stuff from when I was in college and I had been attacked. So I had suppressed PTSD. And my body was going, oh, now's an opportunity. Let's bring it out, right? The stuff does stay in our bodies, what we go through, right? Even the medical procedures, whatever it is, you had a physical incident with somebody, verbal incidents, like we store that too. Someone could just yell at you, right? And you know, you just hold that like you're a little child and you're just scared, right? It's like, oh, help me process and release this, right? So, I had moved away from cannabis. I was still, you know, recreationally consuming it at the time with friends, but infrequently, and like I didn't even have any, I didn't keep it on me or anything. Like I didn't have any products. I didn't know anything about CBD. I knew that it was like a thing and that hemp was opening up, and Obama signed the first act and Trump signed the second one, and that really opened up hemp, CBD hemp to be available. But I still hadn't tried it or discovered it, or nobody even recommended it to me. When I went to Feel Right and they were like, "Oh, it sounds like you need some magnesium calm." That helped a little, right? That was when I discovered magnesium deficiency is the thing, right? So I've been taking magnesium ever since then. But it wasn't until 2018, and I had been doing everything I could, cleaning up my diet. You know, I lost like 40 pounds. You know, I was like exercising, yoga. Like it really kind of pivoted me onto a healthier path. But things weren't fully resolved. You know, it was still like, wow, now I'm living with chronic pain. A couple of years ago, I didn't know that world. Sure, I'd be aches and here and there, and I'm a physical guy, and I do landscaping and stuff, but not like this, and not sleep issues and stuff like that. So I found a product recommended by a friend, company in Colorado. I said, what the heck, 20 bucks, I'll try it. It was a little trial jar. And this was how I knew. And me being so in tune with my body helped. But I took it that morning, and I'll never forget the day, and didn't really think of much of it at that point. There was an afternoon birthday party with a friend, and so they had this big party, and I had social anxiety. Like something I became aware of as I got older in life that I didn't know, but it made sense looking back. Alcohol helped with it first. It really did. Like the social lubricant. It really helped me be in social situations and enjoy myself, right? And I had this moment. You ever have a moment where you just like, you're engaged in life and then you just kind of step out of it? You're not alone sitting in the dark. You're right there in a crowd of people and you just go, something's different.
Hmm.
And I go, oh, it must have been that stuff I took this morning. I was making jokes, I was calm, not drinking any alcohol. I don't even know if they were even serving it. I didn't touch a drop of alcohol that day. I just felt comfortable. And so it did something. Like I was like, whoa, I found something. Okay. And I've been taking full spectrum CBD ever since. I still take that product. I take our product, Real NY CBD. That's a company in Colorado. Like I said, if you find something that works for you, don't quit it. You can moderate your dose depending on what's going on. I had, which was probably the flu last week. I don't know. I don't generally go to doctors. I just stayed home and took care of myself. But I took more CBD that week than I normally would take. And it helps. It really does help. You know, the body's going, hey, we're out of whack here. You know? So some of it's trial, a lot of it is trial and error. You know, doing some research, doing some reading. You know, here I said, oh, I just read about the endocannabinoid system this morning. So I was hoping that you'd hear from me first, but you beat me to it. So that helps. Just asking questions. Like I said, coming to talk to you, go into a dispensary and be curious, right? Their job is to sell you something you might not be really there to buy, but you just say, hey, I'm just curious about cannabis. I went to this talk and I heard that it can be helpful for us. And, you know, but typically I'm talking to people who are saying, yeah, I'm looking for some answers. I'm looking for some insight, some guidance, right? And I can't really tell you what to do, but I can suggest, and based on different, you know, what you share with me and what's going on with you and so forth. But like I said, it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory, full spectrum CBD in particular. Sometimes the higher THC stuff can agitate symptoms, I've noticed. I noticed that when I was going through this. So, you know, hadn't discovered CBD yet. A friend of mine was making his own in coconut oil infusion from plants that he grew, and it was high THC, and I thought that was good, and it helped a little, but not like the CBD. Not like the CBD. So there is that. THC is great for like extreme pain. If you're in a lot of pain, like after I had hernia surgery a few years ago and I didn't even take the stuff they prescribed me. This is how hardcore I am, and I was in a lot of pain for probably 3 days after that surgery. I took a lot of RSO. That's a particular type of cannabis extract. It's very concentrated. It took the edge off. It did not kill the pain like the opiate probably would have if I had taken it. But I did not want to even put that in my body. I figure I had enough from the anesthetic and let my body deal with that. But I'll tell you, I see why people get addicted to those things. Wow, the night after surgery was fun. I was like, whoo. But I was like, I can see why people get hooked on these things. And I wasn't taking it for that. I'm just like, in some ways, I'm just a real purist with, like, even last week, I didn't take anything other than, you know, cannabis, echinacea tea, Epsom baths. I was doing all the holistic stuff, right? I wasn't taking something I had a terrible headache the one day. I'm like, drink more water, suck it up, get through this. Don't just try to bombard it with Tylenol or something. Like, my liver's been through enough. You know, just enough life, right? So navigating it, you know, there's so many companies opening up, so many brands. A lot of it's geared, like I said, by far the bigger part of the market is toward recreational adult use. There's still medicinal elements to that, right? My uncle loves to smoke weed, right? COPD, bypass surgery a few years ago, diabetic, right? Still likes his scotch on the rocks, but he smokes weed all day, right? For pain. He's using it to manage his pain, right? And it's probably a reason why he's still alive, to be quite honest. Because otherwise he would dive harder into the alcohol and or over-the-counter stuff, and sorry, good night liver, right? CBD cannabis products metabolize through the liver very similarly to a lot of prescription and over-the-counter medications. So that's another thing I like to just alert people to. If you are taking any kind of medications, do your homework, talk to your doctor. They don't always know, but one I know for sure is like blood thinners. Any kind of blood thinner, CBD increases it, the effect of it, which, as you know, isn't really, you don't want to be finding that sweet spot of keeping your blood right? Too thin, you're going to bleed out inside, right? Too viscous, if that's the right word, and your risk of stroke. So that's just one that I know. It's super, super safe, but if you're into the medication world, to me, I would look at it as a replacement for over-the-counter stuff. Prescription's a different story. That's doctors, that's medical. You've got to make your own decisions when they say you can't take, you can't eat grapefruit when you're on, what is it?
Statins.
That's one of them. There's another one though. That's one of them. But there's another one, and I'm like, well, just for blood pressure, whatever the common one for blood pressure is. I'm like, eat grapefruit. Get off of that shit. That's what I would be aiming for, right? But it's hard. It's hard to make those kind of changes. I have a friend that had diabetes and is basically in check and did it through lifestyle. He didn't want to go on the medication. He's in his 60s. And he can still, he's careful about what he eats, but he'll still eat pizza. He'll still eat some sugar, but he's got it in check, right? So there's ways to do it naturally. And this plant really is, it's not a panacea, so to speak, but it's relevant to almost anything health-wise that you're dealing with, really. Great preventive if you're not dealing with something, and then in great complementary or standalone therapy depending on what you're dealing with. Some people, I don't know personally, but in different groups that I'm in Facebook groups, they're treating their cancer naturally. They're not doing chemos and all of that. And cannabis is part of that natural protocol that they're doing, right? There's a bunch of other stuff. Some people swear by ivermectin and those kind of things. So there's options available to us outside of the medical system, right? But typically with cannabis, I find people are looking for some relief that's safe. And ideally affordable, right? Maybe there'll be a day where insurance companies will help pick up the cost of some of this stuff, right? Because it's like, oh, I get all my medications covered, or maybe a little copay. Yeah, but what's it doing to you? What's that cost? What's the price of that, right? So we kind of like to just explore all our options and find a way. So I guess I rambled a bit. I was hoping to cover some main points. There's so much to this, but I kind of like to transition it while we had the time we had a couple questions, but anyone else? Vera, I know you came here with questions, so.
Well, I'm wondering if there's any product that doesn't contain THC. I mean, why do we have to include THC?
What's your concern about THC?
I don't like how it makes me feel, even in small doses.
Right, okay, fair enough. It can help you.
So it can hurt too. Well, if
I'm saying it can help you in that, like, you're really sensitive to it, I get it.
Yeah.
And that's partly because I don't know what's going on for you health-wise.
Yeah.
Me and Paige shared a little bit, but
yeah.
and it was something to the effect of doctors said you can't fix this.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Sorry, doc. What you should say, doctor, is this is out of my league. Right? Did she open that because we're done?
She did.
Oh no, it flew by. Let me just finish the beer real quick. We'll talk more, you and I, because we can talk outside of here.
Okay.
There are products, they call them isolates. I don't believe they work as well. It's just CBD, and you lose all the other things. You could get a broad spectrum. That might work for you. That's going to have some of the other goodies, but no THC, and then you have your full spectrum. I'm a big advocate for the full spectrum in the right dose. Like you could try our product, like the 1500 and 2 or 3 drops, and I think you'd be okay. But this is how I work with people. I just say, hey, try with a little, see how you feel. You're not going to get super high on that dose, but if it triggers that, it goes against you getting well, right? If you're in a spot where you're like, I don't like how this feels.
Yeah.
you don't want to be there, because that will counteract any of the positive effect, right?
My question actually piggybacks off of hers. I had read, because I've done research over the years, that CBD actually counteracts the psychoactive effects of THC.
Yeah.
So like as long as you have like, let's say a 10-to-1 ratio, so 10 CBD and a 1 THC, you might get like a little bit of a euphoric like relaxation feeling, but you're not gonna get like high like you would off of just straight THC. And I've also read that if you want the benefits of either one, both of them work better when you have them together.
Absolutely, yeah.
So is
I've read
that-
the same,
is
and I
that
have.
true?
There's
Okay.
truth to that. The only part that is subjective is you don't know how it's going to affect fear.
I do know
Right.
everyone is affected.
You know it for yourself, right?
Right.
And I know it for myself, and it can change day to day.
Yeah.
The more stressed you are about whatever, the more THC you're going to be sensitive to it, right? I know people that like were heavy THC smokers and don't even touch it anymore because of that reason. It's not because of the THC, it's because of what's going on with you. It's helping you see something, right? That's where I can get a little deeper. But yes, Jessica, great point. CBD and THC compete, as they say, for receptor sites. So CBD will help moderate some of the effects of THC, but again, depends on sensitivity.
Right. I
Right.
mean, I do know everyone reacts differently. I just had read like that was one of the things.
Yep.
If that was your concern, was wanting
Yes.
the medicinal
Yes.
of THC, just have a much higher CBD.
Like really
dosage
high.
of
Like
it.
for Vera, it's like probably more like 50-to-1 or more.
Right. Yeah, I was
You know
just
what I
using
mean?
it as an
Just based
example.
on that. So that's where you gotta look at, those ratios are important. Anyone else quick before we
Yeah.
get the boot?
So that full spectrum CBD, does that have THC in it?
Yes,
Oh, it does.
yes.
What is the percentage of it, I guess?
So it has to be under 0.3% based on the current the current hemp farm law that is now under scrutiny of being changed to being way lower than that. And that sounds pretty low, right? It is. It could still translate to 1 or 2 milligrams a dose, which for some people, like Vera, for instance, is enough to go, I don't know if I like how this feels. It could, it might not, because you're gonna get 50 or more milligrams of CBD with that, way more. But there is enough THC in there where that could trigger that, right? And you get into some of the psychosomatic elements of this and you go, oh my gosh, I hope it doesn't do this to me. And then you can kind of create that, right?
Yeah.
So you might even be like our lowest concentration, 1,500, 1 drop, and just see. And hopefully you go, Sean, didn't do anything. Great, take 2.
Right.
Call me in the morning. Didn't do anything. Great, take a 3rd drop. Not dropper. Drop. I guide people in this. They go, Sean, I took a dropper. I'm like, I said drop. Drop, not dropper. And they got beyond where they wanted to be, right? Anybody else?
How can we get more info?
On what specifically?
Like the CBD, I'd be interested.
So I mean, Sarah sells product here.
Oh, it's
Put
right
it over
here,
there.
you put
Oh, I
it
did
right
move
over
it.
there,
I just want to show you real quick. So I brought some of our product that she may or may not have in stock, but also a couple of useful resources. Great books.
Okay.
This one really focuses on CBD, and she has a really nice table at the end that talks about what known effects CBD can have with some of the common popular medications, right?
Just taking a picture of the
No, I know
not you, I
so I was
promise.
coming over.
Oh, thank you.
So this one's just a good, easy reference,
Thank you.
right? This one is if you want to deep dive a little more and get a little more technical. Dr. Bernstein, she is working with people, and there's some stories in here that, again, this is why I'm here today. It's not to push a product. Talking about the medical system had no answers for people. They found her. Yes, they had to come all out of pocket to pay her fees and buy product, but like when you have like a teenager whose life's changed, worth every penny, right? That the medical system didn't have an answer for, and she's medical, right? Doctor, right? Amazing. So some really good educational resources out there to help navigate this if you want to get, into, because knowledge is power, right? Let's face it. But one of the things with this plan at this stage of the game is we don't have blood work for endocannabinoid system. We can't go get a blood test and be like, oh, I'm deficient in CBC, cannabinoid or something. We can't do that yet. So there's a lot of, I'll try this, I'll try that. My mom has tried dozens. I've helped guide her. She's finally got it down to what's working for her, but it took a little while, right? So it's a process, but there's an answer. There's an answer. We're done. Thank you.
So for
Um,
those who want to stay and listen to Leslie, her next one is her like journey through living with Lyme, but kind of holistic healing in general. Applies to
Another great case for full spectrum
What? CBD?
CBD.
Oh, so they sell it here?
She does, yeah. So if there's something you want to try that she's not carrying, I brought extra just to make
Oh,
sure.
I'd be interested.
Hi. What's your name? Hi, Lisa.
Well, if you're staying for the line discussion, it's probably.
You went through it, a lot of loss, catastrophic loss, yes. Okay. That's hard. It's a hard place to be, I know it. Yeah, that's a loop I got in, and it's rough. Step outs, I don't wanna, yeah. But our next stop. You don't have to be sorry, I wanna talk to you. Cause this is what matters, these kind of things that we go through, and to just say, what else is available to me to help me right now, right? There's a lot of available to
I would stay, but I have a reading of Bridget now.
Oh, okay.
I'm stealing the water.
All right. Enjoy your meeting. If she gives you some good scoop.
And I was heaving, and we just had to steak dinner, and I'm like, I don't wanna puke up the steak. I was dry heaving and puking for like 2 hours. He's like, there's nothing you can do, you just gotta write it down. It was bad. I was so, but it was, no matter what I took, if it has THC in it, I cannot do it. So you just see the sunset. Because they're full time, it's supposed to have CBD, that's what, that was with the THC. So I was like,
What was the teaching that your friend made that?
yeah, that was when they,
He's
granddaddy.
So
So I was like, yeah, that didn't work.
you should
Because
check
I was
this
like, that
out.
was really nice.
See, like, if you're
Now I'm
actually
really, now I'm just like,
go to this place and talk to them, just like, this sounds like they have t-shirts.
Okay, so it's just your jacket. I saw your little thing. I was like, she didn't have her thumb through. Like, did she hurt herself? But it's just one of those.
I'm Carrie.
I'm Leslie. Nice to meet you.
really good. It's kind of starting to warm up a little bit, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know it does make it sleep better. But then it also gets really hot here too. Right now I feel like we're
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm cold usually anyway.
Are you? I was until I hit a certain age a couple years ago, and now I'm just hot.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say like hot, maybe but like warm, where like, you know how it feels to be cold.
Yeah.
So when I'm just like, you know, I'll be standing, I'm a teacher too, standing in my classroom, like 2 years ago, when I had on sleeveless and everybody's in sweatshirts and I'm comfortable. And I was like, okay, I guess this is the way life is going to be.
New norm.
Yeah, yeah, so knock on wood, it makes like not hot flashes,
Yeah.
but just
Although I
my
will
overall
say
body
this,
temperature.
regularly
has
warmer,
to be warmer
yeah.
than it used to be, yeah.
Yeah. And there was one night.
Better than ups and downs, though, I
Just
guess.
shutting outside and
True,
my hair.
that's true. I know what to expect.
Actually,
Right.
just one
I know what to wear.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's
Yeah.
just a little. I'm like, hey, look at me. He's strong. And he actually was fine. But like he had to do like 1 or 2 minutes, but it, and they were babies.
So do you have a line or did some you don't have a line? Or just in the holistic healing?
Yeah, really, I mean, Lyme is real tricky, and I mean, so I'm an LPN, so you can get it treated.
Yeah.
It's a very long treatment, and it's kind of toxic to your system, and
That was how I discovered the
I don't know if it exactly works because people have symptoms after,
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah. Just even as you were saying that, like I can feel that emotion.
Well, yeah.
Because for me it was 15 years ago and like they were diagnosed
Not at all.
at that time.
No. Right,
So
and it's ridiculous that, like, it's an industry, but you have to advocate, you have to pretty much already know what you need before you go to the doctor, and
Yes.
you have to tell them what you think the remedy would be, or what you would like to try, because,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
And even if you do all have, like, all of this knowledge and information, and this is what I think is going on, can you run these tests, and then I wanna start this. Who are you telling me my job? I went to school for this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you know the story.
Like,
You know the story.
Right, so we're gonna run some blood tests, not what you want, not as comprehensive, and then it's gonna come back inconclusive, and then you're gonna be like, you know what's going on?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I feel
it's
that.
really
Yeah.
like, and they're arrogant about it, and like, it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. I know once you at least be
Do you know what I mean?
reminded, you know that.
I know my body, my body, right, it's my body, I
Yes.
live with it all the time.
Yeah.
Well,
Or
I
your
don't,
kids. I also
but-
have experience with my kids too, you know, like, just, or I think there's something wrong, oh, no, she's fine, I'm like, no, I'm telling you, no, and then, she's in the emergency room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you.
Right,
Yeah, just like arguing it up, to advocate for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, mine is a good lesson in, how to be a self-advocate.
Well, and it's,
As soon as this other girl comes back to the restroom, then we'll get started, okay?
yeah, and it's hard because, you know, you walk in and they pretty much gaslight you.
Yeah.
You know what you're talking
Yeah.
about, I've done my research, I know my body, I live in it all the
Yeah.
time. And it's sad.
Yeah. Where do you practice?
So I actually just quit my job. I worked in PTSD inpatient at the VA.
Okay.
And hostile work situation wasn't get better. I'm like, you know what, my energy is no longer interfere.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have my daughter that's 20 is starting nursing school actually this semester, and you know, it's funny you can't tell them very much, right? But I'm like, oh my gosh, she's coming out of the medical system. Like, don't she knows
And
like I'm very
nursing,
holistic, right?
You know what
Like,
I'm saying, and nursing, like it's hard and it's tough, and they teach you how to even more so disregard yourself and not listening to your own body to push through to take care of other people, because, you know, my first nursing job 25 years ago, I got a UTI because I didn't have time to go to the bathroom.
oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. I know. I gotta have a argument with her for the fall because she works at a bar and she works overnight. So she was showing me her schedule for clinicals that she thinks she's gonna do. And she thinks she's gonna work overnight at the bar and then go to clinicals from 6 to noon. I said, you're not gonna do that for 2 days. I said, are you going to sleep?
Right.
And she's like, oh, it'll be fine, I'll just sleep. And I was like, okay, that's not gonna be till
You
the fall.
wait until those nursing instructors get a hold of you, I'm just saying,
I know,
okay.
I know, yeah. So,
One time, she'll be fine, she'll be
Yes.
fine. But, man, I don't know,
yeah.
just a thing to learn and
I can't live, even I move
go
with my
through.
eyes closed. It's like, I can't believe it did that. Okay, that's
All right, well, welcome. My name is Leslie, and I'm gonna keep my timer to try to keep me on track here, and my notes also to keep me on track so I don't like digress too much. But anyway, so I'm Leslie. I had Lyme about 15 years ago, I would say, and it probably took me at least a good 7 years to feel like myself again. So it is quite a process, but I'm happy to report that I'm thriving nowadays. So before we get started, I know I already asked you, but does anybody in here have Lyme or know somebody who has Lyme, or is just really into holistic health and kind of healing?
My dog had mine.
Your dog have, oh, they love to treat dogs. They don't like to treat people. Yes,
Oh, just the holistic,
okay,
healthy living.
perfect.
Plus,
So that's-
honestly, living over here, do you, like ticks around all the
Ticks are
time?
awful.
Like, I
Yeah.
feel like that's, it's just knowledge you should have anyways, yeah.
Same with I live out in the country and
Okay,
I'm really mindful of wearing my socks over my pants and
yeah,
just,
yeah,
the deer are everywhere there.
for sure, for sure.
Is that the only way you can get it?
Well, that could be another discussion. That's you know,
Okay.
a little radical, right? That you could go down. I do feel like it can be passed down, and I've seen, you know, from mother to child.
Oh.
Also, and I also think, which I'm kind of glad you said that because I didn't include this in here, but that it's something that can live in your body for a long time without symptoms until your body can't handle it anymore. And that's really kind of what my story is, right? So welcome, I'm Leslie.
Thank you. I'm Jackie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So anyway, I'm Leslie. I'm a wife to 3 college-age girls. I have a 32-year-old stepson, a 9-year-old granddaughter, and a baby number 2 on the way coming up in June, so we're really excited about that. I'm a trauma-informed life coach, a holistic supplement consultant. I'm a psychic medium. I do Reiki. And also I'm a high school Spanish teacher, so that is my full-time job. So I wear a lot of hats, and for a long time I wore all of those hats at once. You know, I mentioned it was 15 years ago when I had Lyme disease, so my youngest child is 19, which puts her at 4. So my kids were little when that happened. So before we get started, I just want to see who is in the room here. So anybody in here describe themselves as type A personality? Anybody roll out of bed and dive headfirst into the day and you just keep on going until either you run out of daylight or you just can't go anymore?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody drink coffee in the afternoon just to make it through?
3 o'clock?
I drink coffee till 11 p.m.
Okay. Anybody ever been called or call themselves the Energizer Bunny?
Probably.
Yeah. And anybody ever drop into bed exhausted?
Yeah.
Multiple nights in a row, right? Okay, so that was me for a really, really long time, kind of to go with like, how do you get the Lyme, and the idea that it stays in your body until your body can't handle it is really what I think my story is, to be honest with you. So, you know, for my entire life, I have been a natural morning person. I have not used an alarm in probably 30 or 40 years. I just wake up at 5 a.m. I would put my running clothes on or my workout clothes. I'd run or lift weights before the sun came up. And then again, my kids were little, so I would shower, I would get my lunch ready, I'd get something out for dinner, I'd get my kids' lunches ready, I'd get the kids up, they'd go off to school or to the sitters, and then I would, you know, jump into the car and go to my full-time paying job. And so it really felt like I was doing a full-time job before I went to my full-time job. And at that time I was teaching middle schoolers, so I don't know if you remember middle school age kids or not, or yourself, but I had probably between 125 and 150 kids that I saw every single day in my classroom. And then 8 times a day, you know, they're changing classes, which means that there's 800 kids in the hallway, lockers slamming, talking, yelling, running. Do we have any empaths? Yeah, so you know, like just at the end of the day, just from listening to that, I was exhausted by the time I got home. And that's when coffee entered my life at about like 30, 31. I did not drink coffee in the morning, but I did start drinking coffee every afternoon just in order to make it through, you know, with my kids. So I would get home, you know, get the kids situated, whatever they needed to be doing. I would be making dinner, you know, baths, bedtime routine, and then come 9 o'clock, I was dropping in bed exhausted after I put the kids in bed. And I did that for years. And I thought I was Wonder Woman. It turns out I'm not Wonder Woman. And then because I couldn't do it anymore, right? And so looking back, I could see that there were clues. At the time, I was like, what? I swear a lot, sorry. What the hell, right? Like, where did this come from? But it was just that I really had ignored those clues for a long time because I was that go-go kind of person, and I like to be that way too. It's hard for me to sit still. But I really feel like I probably got Lyme disease when I was pregnant with my youngest daughter. So when I was pregnant with my youngest daughter, I was really, really sick for a short amount of time, and it was not morning sickness. And then after that, I would have what you might call healthy years if you consider, chronic sinus infections, ear infections. I got my first ear infection when I was 28 years old. Digestive issues, and I was the type of person, I was the perfect attendance kid in high school. I was never sick in school, and maybe that had to do with the raw milk that I drank because we owned a farm. I don't know, but that's another story. And so anyway, again, if you consider those healthy years, I was pretty healthy, right? Healthy means that, I'd have a sinus infection and felt like my head was gonna explode, and I was still going to work every single day and teaching the kids. But then when my youngest was 4, that's really when things escalated for me. And it just felt like, well, first the fatigue came, right? And so you just from listening to that, you're probably sounding like it could be a little tiring, right? And it just went to the next level. It was like every single food that I ate was upsetting me, like I just couldn't digest it anymore. I remember being at work at my desk and I ate a banana and it felt like my throat was closing up. I didn't eat a banana for probably 7 years. I did not have any allergies. I was not allergic to bananas. I started getting night sweats. I had numbness in my face, hands, and my feet. And then the joint pain. So I felt like I was 100 years old, even though I was only 32. So in the morning, this is when I started yoga and stretching. And when I say yoga, slow, because I didn't have any energy, but I literally could barely move my body every day until I did some kind of yoga or stretching. So I did what all of us are taught to do, right? I went off to the doctor, and then another doctor, and another doctor, and another doctor, because I just was dismissed over and over and over again. And I remember one doctor pointing to the screen of my blood work. He's like, "See that right there? That is the gold standard for blood work." And I was like, "Well, really? Well, what about all the symptoms? Well, why am I feeling this way?" So he didn't have, not just he, none of the doctors that I saw had a single suggestion for me. They had no recommendations, no idea. They're just like, "Well, it's not on your blood work, so I guess you're fine. Just go on home." So I did have one doctor who asked me if I knew who Yogi Bhajan was. And I was like, "No, I have no idea." And so I looked him up, and basically he was telling me that I should breathe. That was the only recommendation that I got, which in retrospect, at the time, I was like, "What?" But I did it, right? And it is something that I really needed to, and that breathing helped me slow down. But I mean, here I am teaching middle school every day. I couldn't feel my face. Do you know what that's like? Standing in front of a room full of people and you can't feel your face. And I remember my friend saying we had to share classrooms because the school was small. My handwriting was atrocious. And so really it gets into your nervous system, right? So anyway, sorry, I want to make sure I include everything. But I mean, part of the problem, right, is that the doctors were just looking at the numbers, and that's what they're trained to do. They're trained to look at the numbers. They did not look at me as a person. They never asked me a single question about myself or about my life or anything. I was experienced, they're just like, sorry. So anyway, I do feel like I was really fortunate because that was over a period, I'd say of at least 6 months. And I don't know if you know anybody with Lyme, but sometimes they go from doctor to doctor for years and years, right? Looking for a solution. And it was actually one of the guidance counselors that I work with that said, "You sound like you have a lot of the same symptoms as so-and-so, one of my students who had Lyme disease." So at this point, I was going to a gastroenterologist and I asked to be tested, and it came back positive. And so I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere, right? And he sent me to an infectious disease specialist who was the best in Buffalo at that time, who tested me for 20 other things and then said, "There's not enough evidence that you have Lyme disease. Just go home and we'll watch you." And I was like, "Watch me what? Disappear into nothing? Just be somebody who can't even get out of bed every day? It's hard enough to get out of bed." And I did test positive for 4 things, and I can only remember 2. One of them was Epstein-Barr virus. The other was parvovirus. And I guess that did not matter, along with the 2 other positive tests and the Lyme disease positive test. They just said, "Go home and we'll watch you." So I did what any person who's desperate for answers, I turned to Dr. Google, and which I was specifically told not to do by one of my doctors because he said, with your symptoms, you were not going to find anything good. And anyway, I also had a friend who was dairy and gluten-free, and to this day I don't even really know why she was dairy and gluten-free, because 15 years ago, that wasn't like all the buzz, right? Like you see it everywhere now. And 15 years ago, we didn't have all this great food in the grocery store. But I decided to give up dairy, which is really weird because we owned a dairy farm growing up. But when I gave up dairy, I started feeling really, really good. It was like the best that I had felt in a long time. So then I gave up gluten, and then I felt even better. And I was like, oh my God, like, and I'm not saying I was perfect, but compared to where I had been, I was feeling really good. So then, thanks to Dr. Google, I discovered nightshades. I don't know if you've heard of nightshades or not, but tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, and they are known to cause joint pain. So I had plenty of joint pain, so I gave up that. I gave up nightshades also. I can't remember if soy is a nightshade or not, but I gave up soy too. And then pretty much I took that anti-inflammatory diet to a whole new level. And I feel like pretty much all I was eating was lettuce, right? But I was feeling a little bit better. Coincidentally too, when I gave up gluten and dairy, I dropped 20 pounds almost instantly. So those are inflammatory foods, for your body. And if your body can handle them, fantastic. Mine apparently cannot, even really to this day. So anyway, I started reading a lot too. I discovered the Gerson therapy. Anybody heard of the Gerson therapy? Mm-hmm. So the Gerson therapy is a very strict nutritional healing protocol, and they're best known, I would say, for healing cancer, but they really heal everything. They have a clinic over the border in Mexico. I learned a whole ton about health and the government and the medical field because, a little side note, it's illegal to treat cancer in the United States by any other means than chemo and radiation, which is why a lot of the health clinics are just over the border in Mexico. So anyway, I went to the Gerson Institute, which is, like their school, which is in California, to learn about the Gerson therapy. And talk about divine timing too. So I got there, and the woman is like, okay, this year we're gonna have 2 testimonials due to popular demand. The bathroom's over here. Here we go. Okay, James. And James got up and proceeded to list every single symptom that I had and said I had Lyme disease. And he used Gerson therapy to heal it. And I started crying. And so then I knew that was something that I needed to do. So the Gerson therapy is, it's 8 juices a day, I believe. It's been a little while. It's 4 carrot and green apple and 4 romaine lettuce and green apple juices. So I went out and bought myself a $500 juicer and started juicing. And they also do coffee enemas, which coffee enemas, years ago, I want to say 20s, I don't know if it's much past that, used to be in the Merck manual, like the medical books, but for detoxing. And so it's a massive detoxer. It took me a while to start that one because that's a little bit psychological. And thank God that it worked out the way that it did, because the first time that I did a coffee enema, and I don't know if I mentioned the brain fog that I had the fog lifted and I had clarity for the first time in years. And so because of that, I continued with it. So Gerson therapy is also, they have a combination of raw foods, salads with a lot of stuff, right? And then also kind of like slow cooked food, so things that it's very easy for your body to digest. No oils, no fats, no meat, no protein as we know it. And people are like, oh, how are you living? Well, I lived for 18 months and people heal this way too. I started going to holistic doctors, and if, it sounds like you're all into the holistic world a little bit, you do really have to shop around for holistic doctors. And one of the holistic doctors that I went to, it corresponded to the same time I was going to the infectious disease specialist. I hadn't been there yet. And she was an MD who kind of got fed up with the medical system and started practicing holistically. And once I told her that I was going to the infectious disease specialist, she said, I don't want to be responsible for you being in a wheelchair down the road, and she wouldn't treat me. So you have to shop around, right? And see what is a good fit for you. So I did end up at Natural Health Choices. They are on Delaware. It's a husband and wife, and they're both naturopathic doctors, of which there's 5 schools in the country. It's like medical school, but they do naturopathic things. So in Oregon, which is where they went to school, they can order blood tests and they can do a lot of the things that our doctors can do. In New York State, we have a lot of regulations. They cannot order blood tests in New York State. So anyway, she had me bring all my blood tests. Every supplement that I read online that I thought I needed, I also started taking. So I came in with a basket. She said, bring in your supplements and I'll go through them and let you know like what I think is good and what's not. And then she said, well, I think you need to come back and you need to see my husband. And so her husband is Dr. Lim, and he practices Chinese medicine, and they diagnose through your symptoms, they diagnose through your pulse and through your tongue. And he also does acupuncture as well. So he said, you need some goo, which I was like, I don't know what that is, but okay. When I looked it up, it's a conglomeration of herbs, but it said for Lyme, so I was like, okay. So to this day, I really don't even know what was in it. But I did take it for 18 years, and it helped. That was my first introduction really to energy medicine. So I had acupuncture, and the first time that I had acupuncture, I could literally feel the energy running through my body. So after the first time, it wasn't powerful like that, but it was amazing. So I'm giving you right now all the physical things that I did. This next thing that I'm going to talk about, I really didn't do till almost 7 years later when I thought that I was feeling well. And it's only because I hadn't heard of it. I wish I had heard of it sooner, but it's activation versus supplementation, and that's my table of holistic supplements out there. And so what these combination of herbs do is they activate gene pathways in your body. So there's a couple different ones, right? And one of them, activates the survival genes. And so basically, to put it really simply, it's like a master detoxer of things in your body. And after I started taking those, again, I thought that I felt like myself again. I was back to work, playing volleyball, I was in a book club. And after I started taking them, I was like, oh my God, I forgot what it felt like to be me. It was a very powerful experience. So if you want to know more about those, I can tell you about them a little bit later. So anyway, those are all the physical things that I did, which were very necessary because obviously I had a ton of inflammation in my body at the time. But honestly, what I feel like helped me the most really probably wasn't those things, but really enhanced that. And it was really, honestly, stepping out of my life that was killing me, right? Because, I started this as I was the Energizer Bunny. I never stopped. I just kept going and going and going. And so I took a year off of teaching, and so I know I'm very fortunate in the teaching world that they would hold my position for the year. So I had something to go back to. It wasn't unpaid leave. So, we had no idea how we were gonna afford it because I was the breadwinner, so we lost over half of our income. We also lost our health insurance. I was the health insurance carrier, so we had to dish out additional income in order to get health insurance through my husband. So very scary, right? Like, how are we gonna survive? But absolutely necessary, and somehow it worked out. Like, they did not foreclose on my house. And so I stopped intense workouts. That was not a choice, really. I just couldn't do it. But I mentioned that I started doing, slow yoga. I started meditating really badly at first. If I could make it 2 seconds without like a thought popping in, that was like, but they call it a meditation practice for a reason, right? We have to learn to train our body and our minds. And, again, meditation's not about never thinking. It's about letting your thoughts kind of float on by and not perseverating on those thoughts. And so slowly things started shifting, right? So I'm doing all of these physical things. I'm not working. That actually corresponded to my youngest daughter being in kindergarten. So the kids were off at school for several hours a day, and it was just me at home. And what I was doing unknowingly is I feel like I was resetting my nervous system. So if you follow the holistic world at all and like health, the nervous system is a big buzzword right now, and 15 years ago it was not. But my nervous system was shot basically, which leads me into, the next segment talking about trauma. So I didn't give you all the details or any of the, events, the traumatic events or the overwhelming events that I experienced in my life, but there were certainly many. And, I did just what I was taught to do. I just pushed on through, right? Because that's what we do. And especially that's what we do when we're mothers too. But trauma really affects every cell in your body. It's not just an emotional thing, right? It affects your cells, which means it affects your organs and every system in your body. And if you are not giving your body proper rest, then then those systems are not going to function the way that they should be functioning, right? So I mentioned I had digestive issues. I had digestive issues because I never stopped moving, right? And so my body needed a lot of energy to do all the things that I was doing versus, you know, process the food the way that it should be. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. So that's a trauma book. It's Bessel van der Folk or something like that is the name of the author. But I definitely recommend it if you have not heard of that book. There's also a saying, you know, the issues live in the tissues too, as well. So, you know, anytime you experience a traumatic event, or I don't even want to say traumatic, because when I first started learning about trauma, to me, it's going to be, I'm going to show a real snippet of some trauma that I experienced. It had to be something big. It does not have to be something big, right? So we have a threshold. Our body has a threshold, and it's different every day, depending on, you know, what you ate, how good you slept, you know, what you've been experiencing. And yeah, so trauma doesn't have to be something big, right? It's about how your body is reacting if it crosses that threshold line. So, but I do want to share a quick story with you, because I do think that to trauma and overwhelming events that you have not processed are a huge contributor to your health, how healthy you are and how healthy you are not. So at 21, I was in a shooting in Ecuador, and I didn't tell anybody. I mean, I didn't tell my parents, right? I was there for a study abroad. I didn't tell my parents. It was on a Saturday, and then Monday I went off to school in Ecuador. Yeah. And just, you know, kept doing my thing. And fast forward to when I was 45. So I was doing yoga at home in my living room, and I was doing this pigeon pose, which is a hip opener on the floor. And I was, you know, laying there, and of course it's not that comfortable if you know that pose. And I saw the entire scene replay in my mind, and I started crying. And when that happened, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that I was holding that, right? And so what I was holding was that I saw the shooter, but I didn't know what was going on, and he shot the guy next to me. So I was holding guilt for 20-something years, and I had no idea. And so then I was like, well, great, got that worked out. Until I went to yoga at the studio, and then it happened a few more times at the studio, and each time it kind of progressed, right? Like one of the times I heard, I forgive you. And I feel like that was kind of the man that was killed, you know, releasing me of that guilt, right? I had no idea what was going on, or why that guy even had a gun. So there's a lot of these things that, you know, and when we have trauma, like we do what we need to do to survive. And thank God our body does that. Right? Or we might not get out of bed. You might be one of these, you know, depressive people who never leave their bed again. But they create these blockages in our body. And so, you know, I talked about when I had that acupuncture the first time, and I could literally feel the energy. And to me, that was almost like proof, right? Proof that we do have blockages in our body. And so healing really isn't about pushing through, right? It's about listening to your body. And so I feel like also, illness sometimes can be, and it certainly was for me, but like a spiritual awakening, right? You can't go back to the way that you were before, the things that you knew before. So I also at that time kind of fell into a Reiki class. That was when I was off for the year. A friend of mine's mother told me she took this Reiki class. I had never heard of Reiki. I had no idea what it was. But I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I'll do this. And I remember I'm sitting in my car at the Maryvale Community Center, and I see this man walking to the parking lot. I was like, that's my teacher. So when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? And it was. He was just glowing. I don't know, but anyway. And so the first question that I asked him was, is this going to take my energy? I said, because I don't even have any energy for myself right now. And he said, no, give a healing, get a healing. And I was like, well, I need a lot of healing, so I was all in. And so Reiki, has anybody had Reiki in here? So if not, I highly recommend it. Energy healing, very similar to acupuncture, but acupuncture uses needles to open the blockages. Reiki it's with your hands, with the practitioner's hands. But I say that it changed my life for a lot of reasons, because this has become part of my life purpose, right? And I feel like having purpose and meaning in your life is also a huge contributor to your health. At that time, I also started going to a meditation class. And then the teacher kind of transitioned into meditation and intuitive development. And then the next thing you know, I found myself surrounded by mediums, which then led me to a mediumship class, which I think is really interesting because, you know, we have Lilydale right here in our backyard. I didn't have an interest in it. Like it wasn't, like I was afraid, it just wasn't on my radar at all. And then it really, because of Reiki's, when I started getting messages and then I started taking this class, it has really now become part of my life purpose too. And so, you know, when I do readings, a lot is like spiritual counseling, right? Like people don't tell me what's wrong with them. I know what their problems are and then to help them, right? Because sometimes we don't even know what our own problems are. And again, so purpose matters, right? Meaning matters. I also discovered personal growth work. So anybody heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza? I highly recommend him if you haven't read him. He's got, oh gosh, I can't think of the names of the books off the top of my head, but highly recommend him. He's got several books and you can find tons of meditations on YouTube with him. Dr. Mona Lisa Schultz. So she's a medical intuitive. So she's an MD who's had tons of trauma in her life. But was listening to a YouTube while I was like doing something else, and I heard Lyme, and I was like, what? And I went back and rewound, and she said, people with Lyme disease have balance issues. And I was like, I do have balance issues. I had no work-life balance, right? Like I was all work, and then it was work and bed. It was work and sleep, and that was it. I also discovered Tony Robbins. He's a lot about, you know, personal empowerment. I love him. And you know what I have discovered after like reading all these different people and learning about them is they're really all saying the same thing. It's just what message resonates with you, right? Like you heard of Tony Robbins, like he's saying the F word like every other word. And some people don't like that, so they like Dr. Joe Dispenza better, right? But I also came across Louise Hay. Has anybody heard of Louise Hay? She has, I'm sure she's got the book out there, but it's, she puts emotions to illness. She does have a really good healing book that I can't remember the name of. And I was always kind of a believer in like emotions, you know, to illness, right? Like, you know how you got like that gut feeling, right? Or like pain in the neck. Like we have a lot of sayings about that, like so-and-so's a pain in my neck. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, I'm a little stiff over here, right? And anyway, I was already a believer, but I had a woman that I worked with who had cancer now 4 times. And I invited her over. I wanted to do some Reiki for her. And she, you know, started talking to me a little bit. And I said, well, where exactly is your cancer? Because now it was in her bones. And I can't remember what number she said in her spine. And so I went and I got this Louise Hay book, and it said sexual abuse. And I knew her, but I didn't know her that well, like enough to, you know, just come on out with it. So I just showed her the book and I pointed, and she said, oh my God, I haven't told anybody that story in 40 years. And she proceeded to tell me the story, her sexual abuse story. So talking about, you know, issues living in the tissues and storing our trauma, right? So physical illness is so much more, that's in the moment, that's what manifests, right? But it probably really started years before that. So again, entered into the personal growth world. I really discovered that my natural nurturing nature and like taking care of everybody else but myself was really like the people pleasing. I was a people pleaser, looking for some approval. I didn't really have good boundaries. I learned that no is a complete sentence, and I started saying it. And I also learned people don't really like it when you place boundaries and you start saying no if you haven't done that in a while. But they adjust eventually, or they just, you know, move away from your life somehow. I learned that rest is productive, right? That work first, play later is complete BS, right? That's what I was taught, because there's always work. There's always work. I learned that I had to schedule some fun. I learned that my voice mattered. I learned that I was worthy of investing, right? Like I wouldn't think anything of buying my kids like a $30 outfit, but like spend $10 on a shirt for me, like, you know? I started taking mindfulness classes. I learned about the nervous system and how my nervous system was shot, we'll say, kind of stuck in the fight or flight for years and years. I learned breath work. I learned really to follow my intuition. So every single thing that I did, I didn't mention to what a lonely time period it was, right? Because going to all these doctors who you think are there to help you, and they have nothing to offer you. And then, you know, like physically you look fine, like your face isn't disfigured or anything like that. And I dropped 20 pounds and people are like, wow, even though I looked really exhausted. it was very lonely. So, you know, learning that my voice mattered, I just did whatever I thought I should do. And, you know, with that, it's interesting because a lot of people, once they started learning all this, I just wanted to share and I just wanted to help everybody. And you know what? People don't really give a shit. They don't, unless they ask you. And then there's so many people that are like, that will never work. How do you know? Because you haven't tried it. You haven't tried it. So I would literally try anything and everything. And if it worked, I kept it. If it didn't, I threw it away, right? And we're all different. So what works for my body might not work for your body. What works for your body might not work for your body, etc. Right? So, you know, trying everything. But most of all, really, well, I learned number one that I was giving my power away my entire life. So taking back my power, and really that I learned that health is not just physical, right? It's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual. And this is where my tattoo was born. So I don't know if you know the chakras or not, but this is very similar. There's just one line different to your third chakra. That is your center of personal power. So I started taking my power back and making my own choices instead of waiting for other people to tell me what to do. And then the diamonds around the outside, shine bright like a diamond, shine your light, right? You don't have to help everybody else and let them, you know, help them shine. You can shine your own light as well. And then underneath is a healthy spirit, because it's healed by spirit, right? If you heal all of these other things and you're doing all of these other things, the physical health can't help but follow as well, too. So really, Lyme didn't take my life. I thought it took my life for several years, right? But it really gave me one, and it wasn't the life that I was living. And you know, it's such a blessing in disguise in retrospect, because I just wanted those antibiotics. I just wanted those damn antibiotics from the doctor, and I wanted to go on with my life and raising my kids and going to work every day, and you know, just get on with it. But it gave me the life that I was meant for, right? I don't know if you've ever heard the expression like, you can't heal in the same place or as the same person as you were when you got sick. It's true, right? Because you wouldn't have got sick in the first place. So if you're here and you're exhausted, if your body is whispering, for God's sakes, listen, because I didn't, right? Or if it's screaming, or if you're feeling lost, just know your body's not broken. It's communicating something to you, and that healing is possible. And again, healing is possible not by becoming who you used to be, but by becoming who you are meant to be right now. Does anybody have any questions?
That's a beautiful story.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming and to listening to my story, and I hope that you were able to take some value out of there, and that you're able to, you know, share a little nugget with somebody else who might need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're wonderful.
Thank you. Unless you guys don't feel like you're trapped.
12:28. Oh. Good. Maybe the cards, since we're so close together. Okay.
There's something.
I like from 12:30 to 1:15 is pretty hard.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you need to ask any questions, I'll be over at the table.
Okay.